All right. Thank you, everyone, for braving the downpour that we had that we thought was going to last longer than it did. Now there's blue sky, so I feel like there's a metaphor in there somewhere. So I'm Mary Morgan. I'm with Heading Home of South Central Indiana. I work with my colleague, Tatiana Wheeler. Yay! And we are excited to host this event tonight to introduce you to some of the work that we've been doing with a national organization called Built for Zero. Let's give it up for Built for Zero. 2 years ago, we joined Built for Zero, and it has been a long journey, but transformative. Heading Home was designed to work with our community and regional partners to make system changes that will move people more quickly into housing, safe and stable housing. And we're doing that with many, many of you who are here tonight and others in the community. But our path to Built for Zero started in May of 2022. And since then, we've been honored to work with a variety of coaches who have helped us along the way. And perhaps most importantly, our local team that has been working with Built for Zero over the past 2 years. And I would like to introduce them. Oh, they're up there. Oh, there they are. Who knew? So some of them are in the room tonight. If you're here, can you please raise your hand, our local Built for Zero team. Let's give them applause. Woohoo! We have been meeting monthly, sometimes more frequently than that, and it's their work that has led us to where we are tonight. So before we get much further, I would like to welcome Bloomington's Mayor, Carrie Thompson, to say a couple of remarks about the importance of this work.
So I'm really not the star of the show tonight. I am here really to express my awe at the fact that Bloomington is the 6th community in the country that has reached quality data. That is incredible. It's incredible for a community our size, but I will say it's not surprising because incredible things are done with great leadership. And from the very beginning of Heading Home, Mary Morgan has been leading the way. If we can give Mary a round of applause. She's been building relationships and meeting people and organizations where they are to fit together the many, many puzzle pieces that are needed to truly solve homelessness in our community. And at some point early in the journey, Tatiana Wheeler came along. Tatiana is responsible for many things at Heading Home, but notably, she is the data guru. So without Tatiana, we would not be here tonight. So can we give a round of applause to Tatiana? And to this team that is behind me, I know that every day you do this work. And every day you show up knowing that we may be faced with increasing numbers on our streets, but we're also succeeding with increasing numbers that are going to permanently housed situations where they never will have to move again. And that is our goal in our community, to make sure that everybody has a roof over their head. And that starts with knowing how many people there are to serve. And so this milestone that we have achieved tonight, that we're celebrating, is critical. We now understand the data of individuals who are experiencing homelessness. And from here, we can create a more tangible roadmap to solve the problem. So thank you for your leadership, Mary and Tatiana. And Built for Zero team, and welcome to Bloomington. We know we're going to be your favorite Built for Zero coaches.
Thank you, Mayor. I am really honored to introduce the Built for Zero coaches and consultants who have worked so hard to get us where we are today. Tia, Marnie, and April are going to introduce themselves, but it is such an exciting thing for us to see them in person because mostly we work with them via Zoom, and it's been very energizing so far, and we hope that you feel that energy too. So without further ado, Marnie.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Marnie Thomas. I am a system improvement advisor coach for Built for Zero, and this is my first time in Bloomington, Indiana. And I have to say that it is my favorite. I had a lovely dinner last night at the Uptown Cafe. Got to meet all of these lovely people in person, so it's a lovely place to visit, and I hope to be back. I am just going to say a few words about what Built for Zero's role in getting communities to reach functional zero. And really what we do, okay, it's a little confusing. It's Built for Zero and Community Solutions. Community Solutions is our overhead, but it's Built for Zero. We work for a lasting end to homelessness that leaves no one behind. We have this audacious idea that homelessness is solvable. And we do that, you switch the slide, sorry. And we do that by working with communities. We coach them to strengthen their core competencies, which I'm gonna talk about in just a few minutes. And then we ask them to implement changes into their homeless response system that meet the needs for every person experiencing homelessness in their community. So, we work with communities across the United States, and what we have seen is that there are 4 basic challenges that every homeless response system faces. And these are challenges that are solvable. The first challenge, if you want to go to the next screen, is that communities create an accountable team. Now, historically, in social service settings, social service agencies sort of work in silos, right? They're all working towards their own goal for that organization. And what we're asking communities to do is to have their nonprofits come together, their city and county governments come together, the continuum of care, their housing authority come together and be one team working towards ending homelessness. That's the first challenge that we're trying to do. South Central Indiana has already met that challenge. They've already come together. Yes, yeah. The second challenge is that historically, because agencies have been siloed, is that there's no one team working towards ending homelessness. And so instead of local agencies working on their own, the community comes together and decides on what that aim is, what that functional zero goal is. And that is what a group of folks, many of whom are in this room right now, did today. And we're gonna share more about what they did today, and we hope that you support them on that effort. The third challenge is understanding who is homeless in your community. Who in this room, show of hands, knows what the PIT count is? All right, a lot of people. For those of you who don't know, PIT stands for point in time. It is every community that receives HUD funding from the federal government has to go out, usually the 3rd or 4th week in January, and count how many people are experiencing homelessness in their community. I live in Minneapolis. I know that we are not catching everybody who's experiencing homelessness in the 3rd week of January. You probably aren't either. So what we're asking communities to do is to look at their data, not just at that one point in time in the 3rd week in January, but looking at that data every single day, so that at any given day, you know by name who's experiencing homelessness in South Central Indiana. Tia is going to talk more about what that looks like because you all have done that already. And then finally, we're hoping that when you look at that data, that you can make targeted investments into where resources flow in your community to ensure that those people are permanently and stably housed. So that's our role at Built for Zero, is working with the lovely people in this room to make those challenges no longer a challenge. What we have done at Built for Zero, there are 105 communities across the United States. We also have communities across the world, but I'll talk locally right now, that are participating in Built for Zero. Since 2015, those over 100 communities have already housed 175,000 individuals experiencing homelessness. Yeah. Of those, 14 communities have already reached functional zero for at least one subpopulation, which is also a huge deal. We're hoping that South Central Indiana makes that 15. That's the goal. And then, of those communities, this should say 68, have achieved quality real-time data. And then 42 communities have already reached a measurable reduction in homelessness. And when we say a measurable reduction, we're talking like 30% reduction in their homeless numbers. So it's a huge accomplishment. I am gonna be done talking because Tia has been working her little tail off with Tatiana and the rest of the team in trying to get this community to reach, or to get a quality by name list. So Tia, please come up.
Hey folks, thank you so much. I am not usually a microphone speaker, so bear with me. My name is Tia Lurie. I am a data coach with Built for Zero. I've been there since February 2022. Been working with you all, not quite since when you started, but for about a year and a half. I'm your neighbor in Ohio, so didn't have to travel too far to get here, but it is also my first time in Bloomington, and I'm loving it so far. Thank you all for the warm welcome. Okay, great. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about what it means to have met this milestone of a quality by name list. First, I want to describe a little bit about what Built for Zero means by quality data and what that looks like for us as an organization and how we assess communities in achieving this milestone. And really there are 4 components that we look at. That first one, a comprehensive list. So we want to make sure the coverage of the data you are collecting on the people experiencing homelessness in your community looks at the entire region. So in South Central Indiana, we want to make sure that our by name list looks at everybody experiencing homelessness across South Central Indiana. Not just Bloomington, not just Monroe County, but across the entire region. That's the primary component. Next, we want to make sure that is person-specific, that it's person-centric data. We're not just looking at an aggregate number. We're not just looking at that one-time PIT count every year. We're looking at a list of people who are experiencing this hardship, and we want to know who they are. We want to know details about them, if necessary for case conferencing, their health status, their household status, who those folks are, so that they can help be checked into housing. And we also want to make sure that we can follow them through the system. We know how they came into our system. We can learn how they're going to be able to exit to housing. We want to make sure that it's real time and accurate in real time. So we ask communities to submit monthly data to track the population of people experiencing homelessness on a monthly basis versus that one-time annual count. And as a household status changes, if a single adult turns into a family due to the birth of a child, we want you all to be able to know that about your system. Who is in your system? Who are the single adults? Who are the families? And then finally, we want to make sure it's reliable so that you're not losing track of people. We know that sometimes the population of people experiencing homelessness in our neighborhoods is transient. They move. But we don't want to lose track of folks. We want to know where they are and how we can connect them best to housing. So part of that assessment that we do with the community, and a big part of the work that the South Central Indiana Built for Zero team has taken part in over the last 2 years, is this Built for Zero single adult scorecard. And what that is, it's a tool that looks across your entire system to identify and assess gaps, to figure out where areas of improvement are needed, and to make sure that you can build that reliable by name list. And there are 4 primary components to this scorecard. We look at data contribution of all the providers in South Central Indiana. How many are connected to the by name list? What does your outreach coverage look like? We look at processes and policies. Are processes and policies documented? Is there a shared understanding? Do they look similar across the entire spectrum of agencies in your region? Or as Marnie said, are folks just working in silos? We look at your data collection practices. Are you able to look at your data and figure out who is experiencing homelessness in our system, how they're entering the system, how they're exiting the system? And we look at race equity. We make sure that your data collection practices allow for the collection of race and ethnicity data that is self-identified by the individual experiencing homelessness, and then that you can use that you have the ability to use that to look at inequities in your system and solve for them. So as South Central Indiana worked through all of these components of the scorecard, you achieved some significant outcomes. I want to talk a little bit about those, but I also want to invite any of the members of the team to give some, if I missed anything, please let us know, because you are the ones who are really involved in this work. But I'm just going to pull out a couple of highlights. So as you focused on comprehensive coverage, the team did a deep dive into providers across your region. They did a lot of analysis on who are all the providers. Are they connected to coordinated entry? Are they connected to the by name list? If not, how do we get them connected? What if there's resistance? How do we make sure we're all looking at this together? You increased provider participation. So once you did that assessment, you made some actionable steps to increase provider participation and get other agencies to the table who hadn't been there before. And you built and strengthened those relationships. Let's go on to the next one. So in terms of person-centric data, you launched case conferencing for veterans last fall. That's huge. Being able to look at your list and identify exactly who is on that list and what their path to housing is going to be, thinking of each individual and what they need. And you implemented the CE Blitz. So even folks who maybe weren't ready to be assessed by the system, maybe folks who had some resistance to answering all of those questions and sitting down with someone, you were still able to connect with them, identify them, add them to your by name list, account for them. And that was a real effort that was made by a handful of people on your team to make those connections and to implement the CE Blitz process. I use it as an example all the time with other communities I work with. Oh, this is the next one. Oh. Okay, as far as real-time data management or real-time accuracy, you did a lot of work to solidify data management practices. You all, as you probably know, are in a balance of state region, so you share a database with the entire balance of state. So looking at the data just for South Central Indiana is not as straightforward as it is for a place like Indianapolis that has well, I don't know anything about Indianapolis, so I can't say. As a city that is its own COC, that may have all of its data in one place. Your HMIS, your Homeless Management Information System, looks at data across the entire balance of state of Indiana. That's a lot of information. And your team was able to filter that down to look at just those folks in South Central Indiana and really solidify those data management practices. Agree on definitions of what do we mean when someone becomes inactive in our system? How do we track that? What does that look like in our data? What do we do to avoid that in our system? You were able to define what you mean by a single adult. Sometimes we think these things we kind of take these definitions for granted, but you may have a different idea of what a single adult is than you do. And we really needed to define that and make sure it was written down and there was a shared understanding across all providers so that when we think about this end state, we're all thinking about it in the same way. And you, one more, sorry. And you developed and launched a data dashboard that I'm going to dig into in a little bit. That was a huge undertaking and really has paved the way for many other Built for Zero communities to do the same. So we learned with you on how to build what we call a PMT Lite and what you call your Heading Home data dashboard, and I'll show it to you in a moment. But that was a huge undertaking, and it allows your community to have real-time access to your monthly data, which is not the case in a lot of communities. All right, we can go to the next one. All right, and then as far as reliability, so when we think about data reliability, we can think about this in a lot of different ways, but one of the ways I really like to look at this is, are things documented? Are they written down? Are they shared across your system? And in a lot of communities, that's not the case. One outreach provider functions differently than another. There's nothing written down. People know how to do their job, but nothing is documented. And so in working through this quality data scorecard and in ensuring this work is sustainable, documenting these processes, writing them down, making sure there's a shared understanding is critical. And you all did a lot of work on that, primarily in looking at your outreach policies, looking at your by name data management practices, and in creating this process for including people who haven't been assessed yet, who haven't kind of been rolled into that coordinated entry process yet. So a lot of work, a lot of effort was put into that area, and means significant improvements in your system. All right, so Mary talked about this a little bit, your journey of working with Built for Zero. This is our nice little multicolor brick road of where you started and what you did. As Mary mentioned, you all joined in the spring of 2022. We held a learning session with Built for Zero in Chicago. I remember fondly meeting you all there and watching you work. And throughout that process, you began by doing this scorecard assessment that I just talked about. You had many milestones along the way, started case conferencing, documented and adopted policies, improved your data accuracy, and made sure you were doing consistent reporting. And then finally, you got to this milestone that we've talked about a couple times already. You achieved quality data. So yes, let's celebrate that. That is a huge, huge accomplishment. And I don't want to be the one to tell the mayor that she was incorrect by saying we are the 6th, but I'm going to do my fact checking. You might not be, though, because I've been digging in my brain. And one thing that you all did, that the 67 that Marnie put up on the screen, that is different from the 67 that we had up on the screen. Let me see if I can explain this in a way that makes sense to people who don't live in Built for Zero land. So Built for Zero looks at the homeless response system by population, and we really think about household status. So we think about the adult system, the family system, and the youth system. And those of you who are involved in the system may agree with that, may not, but there's some different, adjacent partners can look different, definitions of homelessness can look different for those 3 different groups. And when we work with a community, we always start with the single adult system. That's just how it's always been. I won't go into the detail of why, but that's what we do. And we ask communities to look at the single adult system as a whole, but to focus on a subpopulation. And so we think about the chronically homeless individuals in our system and the veterans as the 2 subpopulations of the single adult system. And what you all did was you achieved quality data for not only the veteran population, which is your focus population, I'll talk about that a little bit more, but also the chronically homeless population and the all single adults. So that 67 that we noted earlier, that's just one subpopulation. So maybe communities were just focusing on veterans or just focusing on chronically homeless. But to do that for your entire single adult population, there may only be 6. I'm gonna look into that. I'm gonna look into that because there's not a lot, and that's huge. That's a big deal. And to be able to look at your data in that way, to be able to trust your data looking across your entire single adult system is a major milestone. And you guys got this. All right, next one. All right, so I talked a little bit about this veteran focus, single adult focus. Definitely don't want to get too in the weeds about this, but it's important for where we're going. And it's important for the work that was done today with some of the providers. So as far as looking at this assessment, this scorecard assessment, improving these system these aspects of your system that are larger. You all did that by looking at your entire single adult system. When you were walking through these scorecard questions, looking at outreach, looking at provider participation, policies and procedures, you did that for your entire single adult system. When you did this quality data work, reporting metrics every month, looking at outflow, looking at inflow, making sure that data was reliable, that we aren't losing track of people in our system, you did that for these 3 populations. Huge. And then as we start to think about strategy, as we start to think about, okay, how are we going to get to functional zero? How are we going to end homelessness in our system? That's where we get into this veteran focus, where we say we want to start small. We want to make changes, make improvements. Go ahead and click again. We want to, I should have made this bigger, sorry. We want to learn, improve, and scale. So that's a huge part of our work. We are learning what improvements can we make to our system to make reductions in veteran homelessness, to get more veterans housed. How can we improve our system to make sure that can happen on a sustainable basis? And then how can we scale that to other populations? How can we look to the chronically homeless population, the all single adults, family population, youth population? So really thinking about this, we're not just looking at veterans, we're not just focusing on veterans, we're focusing on your system, but we're trying things out in the veteran population. We're seeing what works so that we can end homelessness for that population. So hopefully that all makes sense as far as what we're working on now, what you all have focused on as far as this quality data milestone, and then where we're going in terms of strategizing to end veteran homelessness. Now you can go on to the next one. All right, so I'm going to talk more about, or Tatiana and I are going to talk more about that strategy in a couple minutes. But before I get there, I wanted to showcase a little bit of this data dashboard that your team created. This was a major goal of yours when you started working with Built for Zero, to have a public-facing dashboard that anyone in the community can look at to see that real-time accurate data. And I sat down to start on this slide deck, and I started thinking, what can I say about this? How do I describe the importance of this? And I went to the Heading Home website and I read the blog post that Tatiana, someone wrote very well. And I was like, oh, there's nothing I need to say. They've already said everything, and they've said it so well. So if you've read that blog post, some of these statements will look familiar. And I pulled out the ones that felt really impactful to me, and that really, from what I know about your system and the work that you've been doing and the goals that you've set, feel really, really important. So having a, let's see, which one do I want to point out? A shared narrative in that second section right there. Having transparency, being able to be accountable for what we're presenting to our neighbors and to our community. Huge. You guys have that. You have access to this on the Heading Home webpage. You can look at it anytime. It's updated monthly. That was really, really important for this team to share the data to you as the community. It can help us point out disparities and obstacles. It can help us see where we've been and where we're going. And ultimately, it helps us celebrate successes. So, as we've said a couple of times, really, this is hard work, but you all have seen so many successes, and seeing people get housed is the primary success that we want to see in this work. So, this data dashboard allows you all as the public to see all of that regularly, and it was a great process to watch you put this together. It's a tool that is now accessible to other Built for Zero communities, and the work we did with you allowed us to do that and scale this to other communities. So we really appreciate you all for that, and we're glad that it is live and here. I'm going to show a couple other views of this, and then I'm going to click over to the website to show you how it works. So on that data dashboard, you can see a handful of metrics, and these are the inflow-outflow metrics that we ask communities in Built for Zero to track on a monthly basis to identify what are the trends in homelessness in your community, where are improvements happening, what are some of those measurable outcomes that Marnie spoke of before. We can see who's actively homeless. We have this long-term view of who is actively homeless in your system. We can see housing placements, how many veterans have been housed, how many single adults have been housed. We can see how people are coming in and out of your system, who's inflowing, how are they returning, did they lose their housing and they're coming back to homelessness? Who's outflowing, how many housing placements are we seeing? How many people are we losing track of, how they're becoming inactive in our system? And then we can see how long it takes to get someone into housing, the average number of days. So go ahead into the next one. So I definitely want to encourage everyone after tonight to visit this dashboard. I believe I saw in the pamphlet, it talks a little bit about it. It's really fun to click around and look at. And I pulled out some key takeaways that I'll just talk for a moment about, but obviously I'd love to encourage you all to look at it and just think a little bit about what it tells you as a community member here in South Central Indiana. So when I look at your data, looking at from October 2023 through August, so just a little less than a year, we're seeing some slight increases in your numbers across single adults and veterans. That makes sense of the public narrative right now. We're seeing increases in homelessness. But what that also means is that you guys are doing better data collection. We're seeing more people in the numbers because we're better at collecting data across our region. As time goes on, now that you have these data collection practices in place that you've achieved with quality data, you will see what the actively homeless numbers look like after your quality data confirmation. So when we look at the pre-quality data, sometimes that means, yes, this is what's happening in our system. And sometimes it means, hey, we've improved our data management practices, and that's showing up in more people experiencing homelessness because we're able to track more people. So just some interesting takeaways that we can look at here. And if you go on to the next slide, what we're definitely seeing is more housing placements. Housing placements are one of the primary metrics that homeless response systems track. It's a primary measure of success. We know, we celebrate when housing placements happen. And so I have a lot of confidence that these housing placement rates are accurate, even though we've been working on this quality data process. And we can see they're increasing, that there's a consistent increase in housing placements for single adults. Housing placements for veterans have varied more, but there's fewer veterans on your list. And so those are just some of the key takeaways that when I look at the dashboard that I see, but I'll be really interested and excited to see what that data looks like as time goes on and as we start to implement some of our strategies to end veteran homelessness, which we will get to in one more slide, because if you click on dashboard demo, because I'm gonna go over here real quick, I think. All right. So maybe some of you have visited this webpage before. It's the Heading Home webpage. Just wanted to do a really quick demo. Here we have this beautiful dashboard. And if you go to this webpage, you can look at the South Central Indiana data based on whatever date time frame you want to see. If you just want to see this year, you can click on that. If you want to look at just veterans, you can click on that. It's interactive. You can see what inflow and outflow look like. It's just a fun dashboard. It's really, really interactive. I love it. I'm a data nerd. I realize that probably didn't land for many other people, but I think it's very fun, and I encourage everyone to explore it, to use it. One thing that was really important to you all as a community is, I think, I didn't do this before, so never mind. I'm not going to talk about that because you don't want to watch me fumble around. But anyways, I'm really proud of this and the work you've done here, because being able to showcase this data to the public whenever the public wants to look at it is incredible, and that level of transparency doesn't happen in many communities. So kudos to that. Okay. I will go back now. Okay, so this picture was taken earlier today. Okay. And I've seen a couple familiar faces this evening, so if you happen to be in the lovely group of people who we met with earlier today, I'd like to invite you to raise your hand or stand up if you want. Yes, love it. This group of folks was such an incredible group of people to work with. The conversations, the discussion, the planning that they did. I am so excited for what comes next with this work because there was so much good information that was held in that room today. So essentially what we talked about, for those of you who weren't there, is I'm going to let Tatiana give more of the details, but we talked about what our strategy is going to look like for ending veteran homelessness in South Central Indiana. Marnie earlier talked about a shared aim as being a core component of this work. And so what the group was able to do today is come up with that shared aim and start to develop some of the goals that would get us to that aim. And there is more work to come with this. There's a lot more planning and discussion that needs to happen, work planning, action steps, all of those things so we can make sure that it happens. But setting that aim and agreeing on that aim with this group of people is the first step and is not an easy thing to do. And your group did it. And I'm going to invite Tatiana up to tell us a little bit about what you all planned.
All right, well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Tatiana Wheeler. I work alongside Mary Morgan at Heading Home. And part of my work with Heading Home, actually, is leading that group that you just saw a photo of. Every other week, there are homeless service providers, veteran service providers that work together to discuss our veterans in our region experiencing homelessness, what barriers they're experiencing to being housed, and how we can reduce those barriers. And we have been having these meetings ever since January of 2023, which is huge. And since then, 40 veterans have been housed. That's what we're celebrating. And that is largely due to the people that you saw in that photo. So, in being asked to talk about this portion, I feel a little emotional that I think my work with that group of people has been one of the best things I've been able to do with Heading Home thus far in my career, being able to see their passion in seeing people housed, seeing their dedication in working with clients who have really difficult barriers, and just being so persistent in believing that homelessness really is solvable, and that every single veteran we've housed is us becoming closer to that step of reaching functional zero for veterans. So I just want to give another hand clap for all the service providers in the room tonight and those who weren't able to join us. So kudos to them. I've learned a lot from them. They've been really gracious in teaching me so much, and I'm just so grateful to be a small part of ending veteran homelessness. But part of the strategy that Tia was just speaking of, is connected to a greater aim of what our community or what our region is going to do to really make ending veteran homelessness not just a goal, but a reality. And our aim, on the left side of the screen, is to reach functional zero for veterans by August of 2025. Now, some people may think, okay, yay, we have some excitement in the room. I was going to be hesitant. It took our group a while, if we're honest, to get to this aim today. There are some who thought it wouldn't be possible to 2034, some who thought 2026, and some who thought March of 2025. But nonetheless, we started to look at our data, thanks to Tia, to really make sure that we're setting aims that are audacious, that we're being intentional, we're being even a little radical in some ways, but being persistent and believing that homelessness really is solvable, and it takes you and me to make it happen. So with that being said, we also came up with a couple goals on how we're going to make that aim possible. First goal being to decrease the number of people inflowing into our system, decreasing the number of veterans experiencing homelessness. So that looks like diversion. That looks like housing problem solving. That looks like homelessness prevention. A lot of things that are already happening, but need more funding, need more support, need more case managers. Mary will talk about it later, but we have some additional resources that we're going to be working on to increase homelessness prevention. Our second goal is to increase the number of veterans outflowing to housing specifically. So Tia alluded to it earlier, but there are people who leave our homeless response system because we lose track of them. Maybe they move into a different community. Maybe their housing crisis is resolved and they just never see their case manager again. But we just want to make sure that every veteran we're coming in contact with is moving into stable housing. So that is our second goal. And then third is just generally to increase the housing options that are specifically for veterans. Thankfully, this past year, we've been able to increase relationships with our local landlords and property managers, and we even have some that have dedicated properties to working with HUD-VASH. And we have community partners like the Northside Bloomington Exchange Club, who works with HUD-VASH and raises money for veterans who need things like security deposits, rental assistance, et cetera. We work with township trustees. There's so many providers who make this work possible and who are going to make this aim possible. And then lastly, just increasing community awareness. How many people in this room have heard there's a housing crisis? Okay, how many people in this room have heard that nothing's being done to address it? Right? Everyone basically should raise their hand, myself included. But we really want to show the community that there's so many people working day in and day out to make sure that every person has a place to live, and a safe place, a place where they not only feel safe, but feel secure, feel stable, feel excited about their own future. So we're going to be increasing our partnerships and our relationships with landlords, with funders and donors, with the media, and just general community members saying, hey, there's this group of people who meet every 2 weeks on Wednesdays, 3 to 4, who are day in and day out moving people into stable housing. And we actually just celebrated another veteran moving into stable housing today. So we're excited for what's to come for our community. But I'm excited to introduce April because she's going to share how you sitting here today can be a part of the solution to ending veteran homelessness. So thank you.
Wasn't she amazing? Amazing. So hi everyone, my name is April Mackay, and I'm also your neighbor. I live in Detroit, Michigan. So yeah, and so you know that Detroit is Motown, right? So I'm gonna take this mic off. And join me if you know this song. Just kidding, you thought I was gonna come in here. You have to pay me for these vocals, okay? But really, I am really, really excited to be here. And yes, Madam Mayor, you guys are quickly becoming our favorite. I mean, these people have fed us to sleep coma, okay? They have given us gifts that I cannot carry back on the plane. But they have been absolutely amazing, and they have been warm and welcome. But more importantly than that, just seeing this here is evidence of the great job that they're doing. I mean, having the whole community to just come out. And earlier, someone mentioned, I don't really know that many people here. I only know a couple people here. And that speaks volumes because they're able to bring all of you together to come out in the rain, in the evening. And so we appreciate that too. And the wonderful group that we met with earlier were just so intelligent, so, inspiring and just vivacious. And, we had a couple arguments, and, I'm actually a practicing attorney. And so to hear the arguments were just right up my alley. but just amazing job that you all are doing. And so we were really excited to come down to Indiana. And so, coming from a big city and then seeing you guys in the small city, always coming to a small city and how you're so, everything is just together and you guys are together and bonding like a community should. But it gives us hope, and it helps us to do our jobs better when we have people like you who are intentional and who are focused and who are doing the work and who are very organized. Tatiana is amazing. And so we just thank you. Thank you for inviting us, and we're happy to be here. And so now this is where you all get involved. And so what I would love for you all to do is to think about what role you play in what we've discussed today. So the statement is, my role in South Central Indiana reaching functional zero for veterans by August 31st, 2025, because all of us have to play a part, right? Even me, who doesn't live here, I'm gonna play my part too. What is your role? And so what I would love for you to do is spend a few moments, grab a neighbor, maybe behind you, in front of you, on the side of you, and introduce yourself and tell them your name and what your role is in helping us reach functional zero. Got it? Any questions about that? All right, we'll give you like 3 minutes. One more minute to wrap up your conversations. One more minute. Thirty seconds. 30 seconds. All right, and we're back. We're back. We're back. We're back. We're back. I know you guys are having riveting conversations, but we are back, okay? I'm going to give you guys a chance to share out. I just need a few volunteers who wants to raise their hand and either tell me, well, first tell me your name, tell me your role in ending homelessness and reaching functional zero by August 31st, 2025, and or tell me something interesting that you talked about with your partner, and maybe it's something new that you learned about them in their role, okay? So can I get a few volunteers? You can just raise your hand, we'll come to you.
Really?
Not everybody at once, all right.
Lindsay and I talked about, we both are the directors of our shelter program, so our role is continuing to shelter people who are experiencing homelessness, including veterans. And a cool thing I learned is that tentative date for the new Beacon Center opening is spring of 26.
Woo, y'all hear that? Okay, what's your name?
Oh, I'm Mary Hamrick.
Okay, so Mary and Lindsay? Yep. Okay, so all right, awesome. Great, thank you. All right, who's next? All right, here we go, here we go.
Hello, Maria Douglas with the Monroe County Women's Commission. This is Molly Otto. She's a commissioner as well. And so we are always looking for projects to support and places to put in sweat equity because we don't have any money. So we'll talk about, we'll spread the word, we'll put in sweat equity, and we have actually talked about women veterans and had Mary come and speak to the commission about the program Heading Home when it was newer. And then we have talked about helping women veterans. So let's talk about that.
Awesome, so do you see how we already have some strategies, some ideas into the goals that we're talking about? We talked about more housing options, right? So there's some hope there in this conversation. And we talked about spreading the word and awareness, right? Same thing here. So great. I'm loving to hear it. Anybody else?
Hi, I'm Jennifer. I work for South Central Community Action Program. Most in the room know Eddie. So I'm the newish housing manager, and we just kind of talked. Minnie and I know each other from SCAP, but we talked to this gentleman, Brian, and he was just speaking about, I guess I don't want to share for you, but about being like a partner of someone who's working in this field. And I know as a person who works in the compassion field, and my spouse works in the compassion field, that supporting each other and our friends and our relationships and our partners when we work in these fields is really important. So actually it was kind of cool to have that conversation.
Love it. All right. Keeping it in the family.
Hi, everybody. I'm Forrest, and I'm the executive director over at Beacon. And we were just talking today with Danielle Sorden, and I were talking about maybe see if we can navigate the HUDisms of the world and see if we can actually dedicate some of our PSH specifically to veterans. Right now it's chronically homeless dedicated, but what if we can target veterans first in some cases, chronically homeless veterans with our PSH. And the other thing that occurs to me is maybe as a community, or maybe as, I was thinking about Beacon or as a community, having a veterans-focused housing specialist directed at, specifically directed at veterans to try and work with those individuals on just that, getting housed. So really targeted case management directed at veterans. So those are my two thoughts.
And guess what? We got you on camera saying that. Let's go. Yes.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Stacy Murata with the Bloomington Economic Development Corporation. And we put together a huge research project in the past year and a half called the Economic Vitality Project. And what we found in that project was that there's a handful of buckets that Monroe County needed to work on. It wasn't something that was new to us. We knew that this was an issue, but it really was able to bring to light some of the major issues in our community to work on, and part of it was homelessness. It was also not necessarily just homelessness, but also how it relates to our public security, how it led to our housing market, and many other functions. So today I'm here to support this project. We know as the Economic Vitality Project is not going to, we as the staff of the BEDC are not going to be able to take each portion of the Economic Vitality Project and work on it. But what we can do is we can support these projects and support the groups that are working on it. We need to, as a community, stop working in silos and start working together. And we're incredibly proud of what this organization has done in bringing people together to make sure that our efforts are not duplicated, but they're working together with resources that we can combine to really tackle the issue. And this is just one big issue in Monroe County that we need to do. And so hopefully we can learn from this and understand that we don't have to work in silos anymore. And if anybody needs resources or help, we're here to brainstorm those options with you, whether it's funding, whether it's manpower, whether it's reaching another group of individuals. So really excited. Congratulations to Mary and her team, and also Mayor Thompson for getting this going. And we're so thankful that you've done that.
I love it. We got people coming out the woodworks for you, Mary. That's great. One last one, maybe? Anyone else? The baby wants to say something. Actively involved. I love it. Okay, is that it? Oh, what? Oh.
I don't want to be a skunk at the picnic, but I'm Phil Amerson, and I'll be an ant at the picnic. Actually, no. If you want to put me in one of your buckets, I'm one of those nothing about me without me people. And one of the things that I see we do so well, those of us that have education and professional roles, is make more work for ourselves. And I hope we can find ways, and my particular interest is in the faith community and how they've been missing their place in this critical concern. And so I'm going to encourage them to work more with veterans. But hey, you know, there's some links. There's something called the American Legion in town. There are military resources all around town. If we're going to focus on veterans, how about that? And let's find some veterans who have experienced homelessness or who are without shelter or have been without shelter, and let's learn from them.
Thank you. You are definitely not a skunk or an ant at this picnic. You are an invited guest. Thank you for that.
Thank you. What I was going to say actually ties in with what you just said perfectly. There's a thing called a peer recovery support specialist, and they can do some training. It's relatively condensed training, and actually get certified so that they can be paid through Medicaid or other types of government agencies to provide support to people with the same kind of lived experience that they do. So if we could do some recruiting through some of the groups that you're talking about, we might be actually able to train some people up to work with veterans who understand more of what they've been through.
Years ago, I worked with Vietnam vets, and they found their best resources in one another.
Exactly.
Beautiful. Well, thank you all for participating and talking to each other and bringing out strategies. Make sure that you keep those top of mind, because you may see some emails asking for your help, asking for your support. So thank you again. I'm going to turn it over to Mary.
Thank you. We just appreciate you so much, Tia, Marnie, and April. I don't know how we could have done this work to date without your help and the help for other Built for Zero staff. So if we could just give it up again for them. Specifically with the veterans work, we are very grateful for the Monroe County Veteran Service Officer, Steve Miller, and his staff, who have been arm in arm with us. And I don't think they're here, but we've also been working with the Veterans Administration, specifically their housing specialists, who are working very closely to help us move folks into housing who are veterans. So we are extremely grateful for the coalition of willing partners that are coming to the table, and we look forward to continuing that work. So thank you for those of you who are here, and let's give it up for you. All right. As we close out tonight, I would just like to say that although we have spent a lot of time working with Built for Zero, it is not the only thing that Heading Home has been doing. In fact, starting this spring and through the summer, many of the people in this room and Heading Home were working on a plan to address unsheltered homelessness, which has become a growing concern in this community and all across the country. So a small group of us, including Emily Pike, Forrest Gilmore, Melissa Burgess, Dana Jones, and Carrie Stillions, as well as Tatiana and I, put together I'm sorry? And Danielle Sorden. I love you, Danielle. Worked to put together this housing action plan. That QR code will lead you to the website that has the plan with 8 short-term recommendations and 2 longer-term recommendations that we are going to be working on. If you are willing to put your shoulder to that wheel, we would love to have you. So stay tuned for that. And then the next slide. Just to confirm something that we already discussed here, be part of the solution. You are part of the solution. We have people who are working every day as service providers to walk side by side with people experiencing homelessness, to find stable, secure housing, but we need every single person in the community to do that with us, or we will not succeed. So please think about, give more thought to what your role can be in this, because we would love to have you. Yeah, I guess that's what that's about. The final thank you that I would like to, there's so many partners here that we'd like to call out. I see township trustees here. I see folks from the county. I see folks from the city. I think Tina Peterson is someone that I would especially like to thank. Tina was here from the beginning when Heading Home started with the Community Foundation of Bloomington and Monroe County, and has been such a mentor and guide for us. And I want to give her a special round of applause because she's done so much work on this behalf. Yeah. All right. We have so much food. So please, before you leave tonight, help yourself to another round of appetizers and beverages. We really appreciate that you came out to learn a little bit more tonight about the work that is being done in this community, and we're really appreciative of all of you. So thanks again. Good night.